Awesome. Yeah, so we just noticed it's been over a year since we last did this interview. Exactly a year and 2 months, basically. October 2021, which is insane to think about. And it's like when I first met Shane, like, and Stargaze was not even live, right? That was even pre-Cosmoverse 1, which is crazy to think about how much has happened in the past year. And since then, we went to a crazy bull run. Now everything is at the bottom again. In the meantime, we had Cosmoverse 2. We also came to both events, actually. So yeah, it's awesome to see you guys doing well, really, really well since you guys launched, and also expanding the team, constantly being out there, delivering, shipping, building. And I think that's what really matters, especially in times like these. And yeah, last time we just had Shane on there. Today we have also another new guest on the channel who is part of the Stargaze team. And maybe John, if you want, I think Shane, people are already familiar with you, but maybe John, if you want, briefly introduce yourself and yeah, talk about what you do at Stargaze.
Sure. So I've been programming in Web2 for a long time, and I tried a few times getting into Ethereum and Solidity, but I felt like I was beating my head against the wall. And then when I discovered CosmWasm with Terra and programming in Rust, I really liked it a lot. And I was trying to find a way to do Rust and NFTs, and uh, I saw a presentation with Shane actually on like terabytes or something,
Yeah.
and then yeah, we got in contact on Twitter, and yeah, the rest is history.
I think what happened was John actually discovered a bug in the code that I had for terabytes, and he just DM'd me about it, and then we just started chatting there. And I was like, oh wow, this guy's like really into this stuff. He's actually like finding bugs in my code. Maybe he'll be good to work at Stargaze.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
and since then, the chain went live. We launched the Launchpad marketplace. Yeah, there've been like a lot of different features coming about. Maybe Shane, if you want to expand more on it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's been over a year. First of all, we should do these more often for sure. And yeah, partly is my fault because balancing building and like running the chain and all this kind of stuff, it's tough to find time. But yeah, since we last, so we talked middle of October, and then the chain launched in end of October. It launched with no inflation, and then inflation got turned on January 1st. And then since then it's just been a roller coaster, right? So we did Launchpad in March. I think we launched with like 11 creators or so, 11 Genesis creators. And then Marketplace wasn't ready at that time. Like we couldn't do Launchpad and Marketplace at the same time. So we actually right after Launchpad launched, we went like full force on building Marketplace, and we got Marketplace out in May. And then since then it's just kind of grown to become like kind of like the NFT hub of Cosmos, right? Kind of like the first place people go to. And yeah, it's been doing pretty good volume. Like when Marketplace launched, it was doing like top 7 or 8 marketplaces like in terms of volume. And it's been pretty much doing pretty well since then.
Yeah, and can you also talk through some of the numbers since the marketplace especially went live? You just said 11 creators when the launchpad went live in March. To date, I don't know if you have a very, very accurate number, but I think at Cosmos you presented some numbers. How many creators were launching NFT collections on Stargaze? How many, I don't know if you have numbers on total NFTs that were traded, minted, volumes, all these kind of things. It would be cool if you could share some of these stats.
Yeah, so these are not the most up-to-date stats, but there's something around like 800 NFT collections on Stargaze now. I believe we just crossed 1 million NFTs on Stargaze.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's
And
wild. The first million is always the hardest. So
right. The first million is definitely harder, than hopefully we'll like 10x that soon. And in terms of royalties and sales, so we paid something around 80 million stars in primary sales, and something around 8 million stars in secondary sales to the creators so far.
nice. And we also have to remember, like these stats are like in a bear market where also, you know, at the same time, Cosmos itself is not that, you know, popular right now. And if you compare to Solana or, you know, Cardano, it's like has much more brand awareness. I think for you guys being, you know, kind of like an underdog in the NFT space, that's solid numbers, right? And I think that's also very organic numbers. I think that's also something that you guys as builders really focus on, is to have organic growth and to also absorb some of the collections and creators from other ecosystems that don't probably exist in that form anymore. You talked earlier about Terra a little bit. So given that we are in this crypto recession, in this crypto ice age right now, how do you guys navigate through these times? Stars obviously also took a big hit since it started trading and went just one direction. Now it just went the other direction. So how do you guys navigate through these times? Did anything change for you also since the most recent FTX collapse? Yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit through that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think community is very important in tough times like this, right? So I don't know if you've seen the new collection, Joe collection, like, you know, people, it's just kind of like a meme collection and people kind of coming together and talking about it and stuff like that. This is one of the good things about NFTs, because there's this kind of like social, kind of tribal kind of element to it, and community element to it. And I think that's actually playing some kind of part in keeping people together, kind of keeping them active and stuff like that, and keeping them talking with each other and stuff. So I think in a bear market, NFTs actually have some kind of like positive role. So that's been kind of good to see. In terms of volume, for us, it's just been steady growth. Like, you know, even you know, there's a steady influx of new people that are always coming in. And also we tend to have volume spikes on Fridays, because we do launches on Fridays, right? So every Friday we tend to have like sometimes like a 20, 30, or even 40K day. And then volume during the rest of the week kind of fluctuates between maybe 2,000, sometimes 10,000. So so we've been doing pretty okay even in the downturn.
And how is it for you guys internally? Are you guys currently you know, scared if there would be an extended bear market for, let's say, 2-3 years? Would you be able to like survive that? Are you guys, or is it the opposite? Are you guys maybe hiring? Like, what's like the internal sentiment for you guys?
So actually, during the bull, there was a lot of pressure for us to hire a lot of people and grow really fast. But you know, I was kind of uneasy about that, and I was always a bit more conservative about that, and kind of wanted to plan for like the longer term future. So actually, purposely kind of kept the team kind of small and lean. So, you know, we're up to something like 11, 12, 13 people now. And what we're trying to do is to kind of like stay lean until 2025 at least, because we think probably think things are probably going to get worse until they get better. So our focus is just building, right? We have never built to kind of capitalize on like cycles. We've always just been focused on product, and you know, we just kind of have a bit more of a longer term outlook. So, you know, as long as we make the product awesome, we think the people will always be there.
Yeah,
And
yeah, go ahead.
I think also if you notice our Twitter and Telegram Discord, there's a lot of people who have stuck around who are still in this community. And it's like Shane said before, it's growing and it's evolving. And I think that NFTs are kind of like the way for creators to find their community. It's like another signal, right? And these people, like different people have come and gone. Like some people were shouting like, oh, why don't the devs do something? Like, how come the price is only like 10x? Like, why is it not like 1000x, right? And I think that in the bear market, those people kind of just get weeded out, and the people who care have stuck around. And I think that now it's a really great time because the community who have stuck around, they are invested and they have really good ideas. And a part of our job is to listen to those ideas and like get our heads down and keep building those things that our users want.
Yeah, I think when you say invested, you mean they're like committed to remain part of this community because they have been part of it for such a long time, right? Not just like if people here invested, they're like, oh yeah, they put money in it, but like it's much more than that, right? And I also love that you said that, Shane, about in a bull run. I constantly say this on my channel, so it's great to hear this confirmed from a builder. Is that in a bull run, you guys as project founders and the team, I'm sure you have so much external pressure to like also you just said, John, like to ship and deliver and to improve and 10x this, 10x that. I think right now, if you tell people about, hey, this cool NFT collection just launched, people are probably less interested right now, right? Like in the mainstream community. But the people that are interested are the real people that are actually interested, right? It's not just the noisemakers and the external, community that pressurizes the community and the builders to like do something about the price. And also, I think it's important to understand that a lot of people just measure the success of a project by the price performance of the coin, right? But as you both confirmed right now, Stargaze fundamentals are just improving, right? They're just getting better. The UX is getting better, more integrations. Since you guys also enable CosmWasm, we can talk about this. There's also stuff being built on top of Stargaze, new collections, new standards, right? Like IBC NFTs, like that's all exciting stuff, where you guys currently have really time to focus on building that instead of having to, get pressurized to expand the team by 10x or whatever. But talking about coin performance, you said earlier also, Shane, Stars went live with the inflation in early January. So how was that whole journey for you? And maybe you can talk about, for the people maybe that are not familiar with Stars, what are some of the general tokenomics, and where do we currently stand in terms of issuance, what's the inflation, all these kind of things. It would be cool if you could share some stats around that as well.
Sure, yeah. So Stars dropped, it had like something like an 80% dip or something, just like most other tokens around that time. But because NFT is a bit more risky, it's a bit more kind of like on the extreme end of the kind of risk spectrum. It kind of started earlier than some of the others, but surprisingly, it's been holding up pretty well, since the dip. And if you look at compared to maybe other Cosmos tokens or even Ethereum or Bitcoin, it seems to have weathered some of the dips pretty well. In terms of tokenomics, Stars is still the only token, as far as I know, in the Cosmos ecosystem that has a burn feature to it, right? So pretty much the more you use Stargaze, the more stars are burned, right? So it's pretty much, so Stargaze has 0 gas, but it does have fees for certain things. So it has minting fees, it has trading fees, and half these fees are burned. So we have a thing called fair burn, where half the fees are burned and half of them go back to stakers. So we kind of think this is a unique thing, right? So validators and stakeholders don't only have to make yield from inflation. One day in the future, maybe when inflation is gone, the protocols that are built on top of Stargaze actually earn fees, which go back to stakers. So that's kind of an interesting thing about the tokenomics. Another thing is that it's kind of based on osmosis, so it has the thirdnings, right? So In January, there's going to be another third inning. So then inflation is going to be cut by a third. And so this is going to, keep going on for several years. I think in 5 or 6 years or so, inflation starts to kind of tend towards zero. And so it'll become a deflationary token at that point.
And the max supply is 4 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so which at the current price would give it a fully diluted valuation of 150 million. But yeah, I think with the burn and also like the third innings, that's definitely kind of like sound tokenomics, I would say. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. But I think also like the osmosis model has just proven to be, very interesting. Even though, of course, like in a bull run, I know people are gonna say, "Oh my God, Cito, but it went to $12, now it's at $1." Like, guys, just crypto is speculation. In the end of the day, right? Like these prices just happen when a lot of people are very excited about something, and then suddenly they're not because they're just looking at the coin price. But I think in your case, the fundamentals are very strong. Also, the native implementation of the coin in the platform is really cool. So maybe you can talk about some of the utilities. You already said Stars has no fee, but there's a fee to mint or do some things on the platform. So what are some of the more utilities that you need Stars for on the protocol?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just want to make a comment about like, high inflation chains, just like Osmosis and Stargaze. Like that's just a bootstrapping phase, right? The super high inflation on launch. And the reason for that is to get the token in liquidity pools, get it out there and stuff like that. And it's maybe a little idealistic initially, but then after a couple of years, it kind of hopefully achieves like a steady state, right? In terms of use of stars, so the name service that we're launching soon, that's going to be kind of like the very first revenue driver. So names is going to have when you buy a name, a part of it is going to get fair burned, like the fee that we have now, but some of it's also going to go into the community pool as protocol revenue. So that's kind of similar to, I think, things we're going to be launching in the future, where we'll have some of it as protocol revenue and some of it will be burned and go back to stakers.
Okay, so as we talk about Stargaze names, maybe you can explain a little bit. I think you first announced it at Cosmoverse, if I'm not mistaken. But there's also now, we're quite close to launch, I guess, right?
Yeah. Maybe John can talk a little bit about Stargaze names.
Sure. So what do you want to know?
We want to know the hottest, latest alpha, whether it's going to 10x the Stars price, and what else do we want to know? What it is? Maybe you can explain that.
Okay, sure. So it was inspired by a lot of different things. So it was inspired by websites with their domain name service, and then also Ethereum name service. But there were a bunch of issues with Ethereum name service. So we wanted to try to learn from all these other services, and like there was also UST, and try to make something where it can be used across all the different chains, not just one. And we want to make something that like makes sense with market dynamics in it. So one of the problems with Ethereum name service, there was no marketplace for it. So people would buy it, people would use it, but if you can't buy and sell it, then how do you know what the value is? And then also, when you renew it, you can renew it for like 10 years. Yes. So I could squat on Cryptocito.eth, and I'm not Cryptocito, but I can buy that name for cheap and then just squat on it. So how can we prevent these types of problems? How can we improve on it? And how can we make it flexible, like domain registration? So we came up with Stargaze names, and it kind of makes sense because name services a domain, a key, that's an NFT. That's like a primitive of our whole app chain, right? And we wanted to make it so that it has this market dynamic, like a renewal fee. So instead of being able to squat on cryptocito.eth, if I want to like just keep using that, but it's not mine, then let's say like you want that one, right? So you bid like, I don't know, like 100,000 stars or whatever, right? Because you're super popular. Then for me to just keep squatting on that, I have to pay a portion of that 100,000 stars as a renewal fee. Or I could just accept the offer and then give you that NFT. And because it's an NFT, you can transfer it, you can burn it if you want. There's a lot of different functionality that is already built into the NFTs that you can use. And we're already using some of our other contracts. So immediately from day one, it's hooked into an NFT marketplace. So you can buy and sell and bid on any domains that you want, right? So immediately it has like a market funding value. And then with minting, we're first minting based on whitelist for different parts of our community members. So it's kind of like the community value part. So people who have created collections, people who have been third-party developers, validators, stakers, all the people in the Stargaze community can be in these different whitelists, and then they get like a 50% off. And they, so you don't want people to just like mint like millions of these different names and squat on them. So the whitelists have limitations, like 1 or 2 per address.
Yeah, and you know, another thing about names is that like an NFT marketplace is a very kind of like social experience, right? People are kind of trading, they're kind of curious about who used to own it, about provenance. They will like to look at history, trading history, transfer history. So having names built into the marketplace, I think, is really interesting, because I think it'll just make it a lot more fun, right? You know, you go and buy you go and trade an NFT, and you can say, oh wow, this person I know used to own it, or something like that. And another thing that's important about it is that it's a way to kind of vet the creators, right? So Cryptocito, are you still there? Looks like you got stuck.
No, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Oh, you're still there? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You were like stuck in my screen for a while.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing our community is asking for is that when a collection launches, right, they don't know if the creator is going to stick around. They don't know if they're going to rug or whatever, right? So what we're doing is we're building a Twitter verification into the name service, so into Stargaze names. So so when you have a name, when you mint a name, you can associate it with your address. We can also associate it with your Twitter profile. So you can you know, tweet out saying, hey, I just associated this name with my Stargaze address. And then we have a Twitter oracle that listens to these tweets on Twitter, and then it registers that on the chain. So so we can have like a direct link between like your Stargaze like address, your name, and your Twitter profile. So then you can also attach names to collections and names to future DAOs that we're working on. So it just makes it like a really nice experience, because in an NFT marketplace, it's a kind of a social experience. So you kind of get to see who everyone else is. maybe in a DeFi protocol, it may not make sense, right? Because you may not like necessarily care about, you know, who's in a liquidity pool, but when you're kind of like trading NFTs with each other, I think it makes a bit more sense. And we're also making this IBC compatible, right? So we think, Stargaze is it does make sense to have a name service because names are NFTs.
Yeah.
And is the most decentralized chain. And so we think it's kind of a good place to start it. And but within a year we want to launch a DAO, so then other chains that use it can come and kind of have a say in kind of the future direction of it.
I remember like when I first, you know, in the beginning when I got into Cosmos, Jack Zempolin was actually a big proponent of having a name service for the interchain for Cosmos, but it somehow never really got done, right? Like I think one of the earlier projects was Starname, but I don't know what happened with them ever. They also built an app chain for that, right? And now you say, hey, we have this massive traction, we have a big community. It makes sense to add that to the Stargaze chain, right? Why do you think it hasn't taken off yet in Cosmos so far? And how do you think? I think we brought a lot of strong arguments like why Stargaze names make sense on the Stargaze chain, because you already have this massive traction. You have a marketplace, right? Like John explained. I think that's very strong points. But why do you think it didn't get done so far?
So I think I believe the thing Jack's working on is a chain registry. So it's not name service for accounts, it's name service for chains, right? So then what that does is like, you know, if someone else launches like another Atom or something, that's not the real Atom. So the chain registry will have like the list of like chains that are associated with like the real token. But then yeah, I mean, there's been other attempts at name services. It's just that it's one of those things. It's like a chicken and egg problem, right? Like you need. So if you look at Ethereum, right? Like ENS didn't get much usage until NFTs were a thing, and then ENS kind of took off because, you know, people wanted to like flex their NFT, so they'll like drop their like ENS address on Twitter and stuff like that, and then people can easily find like the other NFTs that they own and stuff like that. So I think you know, you have to have a center of commerce first. You have to have a marketplace. You have to have some kind of place where people can use these.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool, man. And what's the timeline for Stargaze names to go live?
So it's already live, but it's going through several phases of whitelist, as John mentioned, and then the public launch is going to be a month from now. So it was looking like December 27th or so.
Okay. Christmas gift. That's cool. Then.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so that's really cool. So Stargaze names, we talked about this. What about IBC NFT transfers? There was also something that you talked about at Cosmos briefly. Maybe you can explain a little bit currently what's the token standard that NFTs on Stargaze have, and what ICS 721 would change.
Sure, yeah. So ICS 721 is just kind of based on ICS 20, which is the fungible token standard, and it's a pretty standard kind of like mint and burn thing, right? So if you want to transfer an NFT to another chain, let's say you want to go from chain A to chain B, you would lock it up in chain A and then send an IBC message to chain B, and then it'll mint kind of a derivative synthetic version of it on chain B. So this was Cosmos standard. I believe Iris worked on the SDK version of it, and we worked on the CosmWasm version of it. And yeah, it just enables NFTs to flow among chains, SDK chains, and CosmWasm chains. So next year, early next year, I believe in February, Iris and Stargaze and a couple other chains are getting together and launching game of NFTs. So this is we're going to be like testing this out in the real world. It's just that like there's so many unknowns because this is a new protocol, so it has to be kind of like tested in the wild and see if there's any like attack vectors and things like that.
So that would only require IBC implementation of that chain, right? Because you guys have CosmWasm, but if, for example, Iris has doesn't have CosmWasm or the Cosmos Hub, for example, it would still be compatible because it has IBC, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Nice. Okay. And you said early next year is when the first versions would come out or be tried?
Yeah, exactly. So what we're probably going to do is we're going to launch a rate limited version of it first. So, maybe you might have some kind of rules saying, oh, you can only transfer 5 NFTs from this collection every day, something like that, to like limit any kind of issues that might happen. And then after Game of NFTs, when we've kind of like tested this in the wild a bit more, then we can kind of, open it up a bit more.
That's really exciting. I mean, I had an interview with Ivan on Tech, who is like one of the biggest crypto YouTubers. Like when I started my channel, I was like, for me, he was like the man, the guy that I looked up to. Like, holy shit, this guy made it in crypto YouTube. So he was a big inspiration for me. And I was on his channel, and he asked me that question as well, right? Like when IBC enabled NFTs, basically. But it's cool to see that you guys are shipping it first. And I don't know if there's like any comparable anything that's comparable in the rest of crypto. Like, are you aware of anything that's anywhere close to IBC NFTs? Because that's a big thing, right? That's like probably maybe not the end game for NFTs, but like that's a big leap forward for NFTs in general, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not aware of anything like this in any other ecosystem. I know that axelar is working on generalized message passing, and this might be part of that. But I think ICS 721 is going to be the first to market for this stuff.
Nice, very
bullish. Also, it seems like bridging is kind of like a bespoke solution. Like between every chain, you need to implement like a bespoke bridge. But with IBC, it's kind of like Cosmos's Ethereum 2.0. Like it's the built-in message passing in between all the different chains. It really creates a uniform network.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is like we'll start seeing these kind of like cross-chain kind of apps and protocols and in games and stuff like that, right? So you can imagine like, hypothetically, let's say there's some kind of like interchain game and you have like secret items or something. So maybe you can like, have those like NFTs with like secret metadata or something can be on secret network. And then maybe you can trade it on, you can trade them on Stargaze. And then maybe you can like, have them on a DAO and JUNO or something. Like there's just so many kind of like different cross-chain applications of this stuff, which I think is going to be super cool.
Yeah, and speaking of applications, since Stargaze also enables CosmWasm, which is the basically largest smart contract platform standard in Cosmos. What are some of the projects at Cosmos? You talked about the badges that 0x Larry did. What are some of the other projects that are launching on top of Stargaze? And if I would be a developer right now and listening to this, what would be my first place to start if I say, hey, I have a cool idea, I want to build this on Stargaze? How would I get started to build on Stargaze?
Yeah, so building on Stargaze is really easy. We have a permissionless testnet. You can just go in and make a a contract and launch it on the testnet. Check out docs.stargaze.zone. There's some information there on how to get started. But yeah, I mean, so far every developer that has submitted something to Stargaze has gotten on the chain, and the voting period is only 3 days long. So it's not that hard to get something launched on Stargaze. There was a developer called Stuart Bracken. He did this thing called Imago, which is like a generative art platform. So it's kind of like art blocks on Stargaze. So when you go and mint an NFT, it's like it uses, I believe, like the block height and your address and a couple of other information to create a unique NFT that's generated live on chain, which I think is really cool. Then there's also Pegasus, which is like peer-to-peer trading. That's also live, and yeah, Larry's badges and a couple other things too.
Yeah, there are also some creators who have made their own contracts and are in the process of uploading them. So I think that for developers, you could probably ask the creators because they have a lot of interesting and creative ideas. Like maybe one of ones we made an interim factory for that. So I think that that will probably be the next like impending launch. But yeah, definitely talk to the creators. They have like Dutch auctions. That's something that would be really interesting to see on Stargaze. And I'm sure they have other ideas too.
Yeah, I see a lot of creative and crazy ideas floating around there, but yeah, I think you guys are also very approachable and very supportive when it comes to these things, right? So yeah, if you're listening and you want to build on Stargaze or you want to drop a collection or whatever, reach out to either me or the team, Shane or John here, tweet about it. That's what I love about a lot of projects in Cosmos, actually, that you guys are very accessible and like very supportive. I really love that spirit. Another thing that you guys announced at Cosmoverse was super cool NFT staking, which is inspired by Superfluid staking also on Osmosis, which basically means that if you hold an NFT, you can add stars to it, then you can stake that NFT to a validator, earn the yield obviously on that stars, but also earn additional NFT incentives up to the floor price. So that's the slide from Cosmos that I just read out. But maybe you can add more to that, how that works, what's the timeline, and yeah, some of the cool things that you can do with what is it called? Super cool NFT staking.
Yeah. So we didn't want to call it Superfluid because Superfluid I guess specifically is related to kind of earning DeFi yield. So super cool NFT staking is pretty much well, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. So we announced that we're going to do NFT staking actually back in March, and when we were doing a little bit of research on it, we just kind of realized that like the way NFT staking works on Ethereum is that you just you lock your NFT up for a period of time and you earn some yield on it, but it's not like it's just yielding some governance token or something like that. And you're kind of just getting like bribed to just like keep it in one place for a period of time, right? And then after that, the people will just kind of like dump it and leave, right? So we wanted to kind of design something a little better than that. So what's super cool staking, the way it works is that you actually you charge up the NFT by adding tokens to it, and then you stake it on a validator, right? And then when you stake it on a validator, you earn regular proof of stake yield. And then because the floor price of the NFT is known, you can also earn like extra yield up to the floor price. So it's just kind of it's kind of a way to kind of like lock in your NFT and kind of like not lose value on it as the token inflates in value. And then there's like other things we can build on top of that. But this is just kind of like the very kind of first primitive.
Nice.
That we're building. No,
that's cool. Yeah, is there any timeline when we might see more from that?
So sometime early next year. So first we had to build NFT DAOs first, and then the staking is going to happen inside these DAOs.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think it's already December anyways, which is crazy to think about. So I think this year is anyways basically over with Christmas coming up and everyone's still digesting FTX, the FTX drama. So yeah, I think that's makes sense. As we talk about the future, what's up next? What's the big vision? We talked a lot about NFT collections. We talked a lot about some of the cool features also that you guys are innovating with NFTs, but also with tokenomics. What is the grand vision? Like, what is in your point of view? Like, what is the end game for Stargaze? What do you want to go 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when NFTs are a big thing? And maybe you can also share a little bit your general views about NFTs in general. We obviously had this massive hype last year, or like this year actually. Now it's cooled off a little bit. Where do you see NFTs going? And where do you see Stargaze going in the long term? Like, what's your end mission here?
Sure. Yeah. So kind of like the grand vision of Stargaze, it's kind of it hasn't really changed. It was always we always kind of saw NFTs as kind of like a go to market, right? I was never quite sure of the right term to use for it, because now we're kind of seeing that like app specific chains are not just app chains, right? So I think I really like the word that say is using. So they use they say is a sector specific chain, right? And even like Neutron, right? These are chains that are not just app chains; they're more like sector specific chains. And actually, what's his name? James from Figment. He calls these dad bod chains, where they're growing beyond just kind of the app chain thesis. So the what I kind of see Stargaze as is more like a consumer facing chain, right? So NFTs are kind of like a consumer facing thing. Um, if you look at Ethereum, if you look at the numbers, a lot of people kind of come for NFTs first, and then then they might get into DeFi, then they might get into other stuff. So um, the way we kind of see it is that it's kind of like a gateway drug, right? So whenever the next bull market comes, also as we add fiat on ramps and stuff like that, we kind of see it as maybe the first place people might go to actually when they kind of start their journey in Cosmos. So we are really kind of focused on making the UX and UI like incredibly easy, incredibly simple, and kind of trying to be the place where we can onboard people. So so that's kind of what we're going to keep working on. And eventually there'll be more like DeFi integrations, right? And the lines between kind of NFTs and DeFi is kind of blurring a little bit, right? If you look at Uniswap v3, like the liquidity positions on Uniswap are NFTs, right? And kind of that's something that we're working on too, right? We're working on an AMM, and if you look at stuff like pseudo swap on Ethereum, right, the lines between DeFi and NFTs are kind of blurred. So it'll be kind of interesting to see kind of what happens in the future. But we're gonna just keep listening to the community and keep building. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. Yeah, I think that's that makes sense. I like this like sector specific chain expansion to like just the app chain thesis. And yeah, I mean there's so much. I think maybe you can share final thoughts, and John as well, like NFTs in general. I mean, it only really became big like 2 years, not even 2 years ago, probably like 1.5 years ago, right? Like half a year before you guys launched, it like really blew up. So where do you think, what, like percentage wise, how much do you think of the potential of NFTs have we seen so far? In terms of like what it can do to disrupt like traditional industries right now.
Well, I think that NFTs, it's still really early. Like now you kind of see NFTs meaning a lot of different things. Like before, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, they were just like profile pictures or like one-of-one arts. But now we see NFTs as primitives of like data tables in Ethereum. We see NFTs as non-fungible but not immutable, so they can change over time. And we see NFTs as like profiles, right? So maybe it becomes a primitive of a social experience in Web3. So I think that, and it's easy to say Web3, but definitely the experience has not caught up yet. And it's like Shane's earlier point, like the UX UI is better, but it's not quite there yet. So I think that we need to get like more experienced people into the space to build up all the different things to make it easy for people to get into crypto, to share their cat pictures or whatever it is.
Yeah, and another thing is that like a lot of people like to talk about like real world use cases of NFTs for ticketing and real estate and stuff like that. You know, I personally think those are a little further away. Um, and right now, what has really good product market fit is the PFPs and all this kind of like fun stuff you can do with it, right? So our goal and our job is to keep building around what has product market fit, right? It doesn't really make sense to work on something that might be 5 years away, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I mean, a lot of people ignore the demand of the market and like, you know, what makes sense at the current time. And I'm personally very interested to see real estate represented as NFTs, and but I think that's just like regulatory you know, hurdles that are still along the way that will take another couple of years before it's probably like really solid and accessible, and before there's liquidity there and all these kind of things. But yeah, interesting stuff. Definitely. So maybe as we come to an end, you can share what are some of the your favorite collections right now. I mean, Bad Kids is kind of like the gold standard on Cosmos NFT skies right now. What are some of the other NFT collections? You dropped Joe earlier on. That's a brand new one. What else do we have? What are you guys excited about in NFT space on Stargaze right now?
So I really like the underdogs. So I think like Starchodes had really good memes, and I would like to see that getting revived, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. And then I really like the Stargaze, like the pixelated images and GIFs are really nice.
Yeah, and I think I'm really excited about some of the projects that are like building kind of like bigger, grander vision things on top of Stargaze, right? So there's like Dramaverse and Stargaze Punks that are like building their own chain, and they're building like a game. And there's like Horizons Unbound that's also building a game. So there's this like and also there are creators that launched a collection, then they've launched a validator, right? And they're kind of like, you know, getting entrenched into the ecosystem, into the community. And they're also, you know, building now stuff on top of the validator and things like that.
Even
so
like
I'm kind of excited about that.
Building their own chain, right, with Andromeda.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they're also going to build their own Cosmos chain, which is really cool. But yeah, that was really cool. Any final words to the community? Anything? Any alpha maybe? Last minute alpha. Now is your chance.
Well, we didn't talk about outposts, which I think we're going to call them star bases. So star bases are pretty much going to be so they're going to be built on top of the IBC NFT transfer stuff that we're working on, and basically it just enables other chains to have like a local version of Stargaze on them, right? So other Cosmos chains, if they have NFTs, if they have a need for a marketplace, they can use Stargaze as if it was like a local marketplace there, and it's kind of like a proxy to the Stargaze chain. So all the liquidity will be on Stargaze, but they'll be able to interact with it over IBC. So that's something I'm pretty excited about, and that's another thing we have for early next year.
And integration with names too.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of stuff. I'm really excited to see. I mean, hopefully we do this interview more times, but a year from now, you know, that would be our second anniversary. I think we see a lot more features, a lot more stuff, a lot more volume. Even if the bear market continues, I mean, people are still there, right? Like we talked earlier. I mean, now you really see which, you know, who really cares, who's really committed to the industry. So as John said, who's really invested. So yeah, I really appreciate your guys' time, and yeah, hope to see you guys soon on another Cosmos event. And yeah, wish you guys all the best.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Cito.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you, dude.